Okay, welcome to today's webinar, How to Implement the CIS Benchmark for Better iOS Security. My name's Nick Thompson and I'll be your host today. Let's take a look at our agenda. So today we're going to talk a little bit just about Jamf as an overview. So for anyone who is not familiar with us, we'll sort of baseline everybody. Then we're going to talk about iOS in the enterprise. What's happening there? Why are we seeing growth? What are organizations doing? Then we'll talk at a basic level, what does iOS deployment and management mean? How do you accomplish the basic task of deploying and managing these devices? And then we'll take a look at the CIS checklist and how you would implement it. We'll wrap up with some next steps and Q&A. So just a brief overview of Jamf for those who aren't familiar with us. Our mission is simple. We help organizations succeed with Apple. This is what we do. We don't manage Windows devices and we don't manage Android. We only do Apple. And that lets us stay focused on everything that they have to offer for their platform, for healthcare, for education, for the enterprise. And we do so with our two products, Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. Now is really all about simple mobile device management, really no IT required. Great for smaller organizations. And then Jamf Pro, which is Apple management for IT professionals. And it's really great for larger organizations that need the entire MDM spec to be able to do advanced management tasks. Again, just sort of comparing the two here, Now is all about easy device setup, simple management, versus Pro goes through the entire lifecycle management here. You can also see both products side by side. They're both web-based. You just simply log in and do all of your management tasks from your web browser. Now, today's presentation is going to primarily focus on Jamf Pro. But if you're a smaller organization looking to just get started, check out our website and check out Jamf Now. You can even sign up for a free account for now. All right. A little bit about who we serve. We help more than 15,000 organizations to manage over 10 million Apple devices. You see us in sort of the traditional Apple markets like tech companies and global marketing groups, but you of course see us in the top Fortune 500, the most valuable brands, and something that we're very proud of is how many schools that we support as well too. And we've been doing this for a while. In fact, we've been doing it for over 15 years now. And you can actually see our track record of how quickly we're able to support all of the new Apple operating systems and how fast we're able to support all the different management tools that are inside of there. So it's definitely something that we like to hang our hat on as far as how fast we can keep up with Apple. And that's because we solely focus on Apple. Again, we don't do Windows. We don't do Android. So let's talk about iOS. iOS in the enterprise has been growing very rapidly. Mobile devices are transforming businesses everywhere, from point of sale machines at your local coffee shop to construction workers pulling up blueprints on the fly to mobile sales teams staying connected while they're on the go. These devices are everywhere, and the value has just become very obvious for organizations. But what kind of mobile device do employees actually want to use? We conducted a survey recently. We conducted a survey in early 2018 to find out how important choice programs were for employees and what kind of devices that they were actually wanting to choose. Of the organizations that we surveyed here, 75% of the employees said they would want to choose iOS over Android when offered a choice. So it's pretty compelling what people want to use. Fun fact, less than 1% said that they would like to still use a BlackBerry for their work device. I don't know if that says something about BlackBerry or the user, but some people are still hanging on to them. Of course, if you want to know more about our survey here and find out some other cool facts about the importance of choice, check out our website. You can download this free ebook here. So why iOS? Well, there's a number of different reasons. First off, it's really great hardware that Apple makes. These devices are fast and they're efficient and they're very, very powerful. Plus, from a security angle, they offer native hardware-based encryption to make sure all of your data is secure on these devices. You don't have to worry about anything to have encryption turned on. You just need to have a password on. And then to get into them, Apple has built in great biometrics for security, such as Touch ID and the new Face ID on the iPhone X. Plus, there's some amazing apps out there, including productivity apps from Microsoft. So you can do Microsoft Office on your iOS devices. Plus, they've got great built-in support for modern, secure wireless networking, including VPN and single sign-on. And it supports a lot of the infrastructure that you have already, such as a Microsoft Exchange server. So you can easily connect these to your Exchange server for email, contacts, and calendars. Plus, iOS really offers unique experiences in the enterprise. Take a look at what IBM is doing, for example. IBM's developed a partnership with Apple where they are building industry-specific apps for very, very specific tasks. You see them building some great things for things like retail, for insurance agencies, for airlines, for rail companies, for energy, and so many more industries. These are really helping transform how people do business on the go. Plus, established companies, like Salesforce, have developed rich iOS apps that connect back to your customer database and really enable mobile productivity from your sales teams. And finally, an organization who uses a management tool like Jamf can also set up internal app catalogs to really help streamline the deployment of all of these corporate-owned apps. In fact, iOS is being used so much in business that this organization here, Ignite, did a study on mobile activities. They looked at all the different mobile activities that are being done in business, and they concluded that 82% of mobile activities are being done on iOS over Android. You also hear Apple talk about this in their earnings calls, where they've stated that all of the Fortune 500 companies have approved iOS for use at their organization. So it's really, iOS is the choice for enterprise. Now you may be saying, well, okay, great, Nick, what about Android? And it's a fair question because they certainly do make some good products out there. But I want to address what it would look like for some concerns that we've heard from the marketplace. First, one concern is fragmentation. On iOS, 95% of devices out there are running the two latest versions, iOS 10 and 11. Compare that to the Android side of things, with Oreo and Pi. Pi isn't even on this pie chart yet. You have less than 13% of devices that are running the two latest operating systems. Plus, you've got some severe fragmentation across some of the even older ones. That leads to some major security concerns that organizations have around Android, including some of the different ways that nefarious apps have snuck into their Play Store. So we think the choice is clear that iOS is really what organizations should be deploying out there in terms of security. So how do you deploy and manage iOS in an enterprise setting? Well, like I mentioned, there's a lot of great things that Apple has built into the operating system that makes it enterprise friendly, such as Exchange support or the ability to enforce passwords or to manage settings remotely or to control the flow of documents and data, to connect to VPN networks and to have apps be managed and to have a robust way of updating the software. This is all done through their mobile device management or MDM framework. So let's explore what is MDM and how does this actually work. In order to understand MDM, you need to first understand something called Apple Push Notification Service or APNS. This is a service from Apple that maintains a constant connection to your iOS devices so you don't have to. That means when you start doing various management tasks inside of Jamf Pro, it communicates to the device. So you can send things like commands or apps or various profiles to that device. This is the framework of mobile device management or MDM. So what can MDM do? Well, we like to sort of think of it in a number of different buckets here. And these are the buckets that we've categorized them in. First, you can deploy devices so that you can start to manage them. Then you can gather inventory data. You can start configuring them using config profiles. And you can take individual actions on them using management commands. You, of course, want to deploy apps. And what we'll talk a lot about is security. So let's walk through these here. The first step in management is always enrollment or deployment or provisioning, whichever word you want to use for it. But it comes down to really three options of getting a device ready to be managed. You've got a free app from Apple called Apple Configurator that lets you plug a device in and provision it and to get it enrolled. But it requires a physical connection over USB, so it's not really that great for large-scale environments. For existing devices out there in the field, you can always have a user go to a website that Jamf Pro generates for you, a private URL that allows you to enroll a device just by tapping through a few options there. But the best way of doing things is really to leverage Apple Business Manager, or what used to be called the Device Enrollment Program, or DEP as you may have heard it abbreviated. This is a program from Apple that allows you to zero-touch deploy your devices. So they are automatically configured and enrolled into Jamf Pro after purchasing them and deploying them out. So IT doesn't have to touch it at all. This is really the way for enrolling devices moving forward to make sure that everything is smooth and automatic. Let me just show you what the experience is like. So here we have an iPad, and it's being booted up for the first time. I'm going through my normal setup assistant where I connect it to Wi-Fi, and then I get this remote management screen that says remote management is required. That's the magic of Apple Business Manager, or what used to be called DEP. It automatically enrolls this device into Jamf Pro. And then since Jamf Pro has got some settings pre-configured for any device that enrolls, it's automatically grabbing some settings here. So it's enforcing a password, it's pushing down some apps, it's changed the wallpaper even, and I've loaded our self-service app so users can start getting the apps that they need without having to bug IT. All done without having to use any Apple IDs either. Pretty cool stuff. Now, to understand iOS management, you also need to know about a concept called supervision. Supervision really gives schools and businesses greater control over the iOS devices that they own. It's really a higher level of management for iOS. And it's enabled via Apple Configurator or wirelessly using Apple Business Manager like we just saw. And this is required for a number of management tasks moving forward here. So a number of management tasks require supervision. And it's highly recommended for any device that is institutionally owned. So that's deployment. After you've deployed them, you of course want to gather inventory data. And Jamf Pro really lets you collect a wide range of inventory data of these devices. So you can get hardware information like the device type, the model, the serial number. You can get software information like the version that it's running or what apps are installed. The status of the management state there, what IP address it's talking to. And other things like the different profiles that are installed, or super handy, the activation lock status on there too. So it gathers a lot of inventory data, which you can then act upon and really make informed management decisions about your devices. You can, of course, then configure these to be appropriate for your environment. These are known as configuration profiles. They're little XML files that you build inside of Jamf Pro and you distribute to your iOS devices. And I've just highlighted some of the more common ones here and grouped them in some groupings. There's some basic things like enforcing a password or applying some restrictions on the device, having it automatically connect to the Wi-Fi network that you tell it to, or pre-configuring it for your VPN settings, being able to populate all of the Exchange server information, or controlling some internet settings like domains and content filters, and some advanced stuff like SCEP servers and certs. All of this is possible using Jamf and the Mobile Device Management Framework. After configuring them, you can, of course, take various commands or actions on these devices. And here's what's possible. So I can do things like remotely lock a device or put it into lost mode. I can remotely wipe it. I could clear a password if somebody forgot their password on a device. As we saw in our video earlier, we could set the wallpaper so somebody could boot up the device and then have the wallpaper be set. Very handy if they're like shared devices that you need to quickly identify, or if you just want to have some corporate branding on them. And other things too, such as unmanaging the device or bypassing activation lock if somebody happened to sign in with their Apple ID and you need to bypass that activation lock. As long as it was managed ahead of time, you can do that. Then, of course, out of the box, iOS devices have a lot of great stuff in there, but you, of course, want to get apps on there. That's the heart of productivity. And so, of course, Apple has a wonderful app store out there, a very healthy app store ecosystem with 1.5 million apps that are designated for business. And they pay their developers really well so people can continue making great apps on that platform. Of course, you can always build your own apps too. They've got a very robust SDK for building your own apps. You can also partner with other organizations to privately deliver you apps known as a B2B app. And you can even partner with companies like IBM, which we highlighted earlier, who are making industry-specific things. So how do you go about deploying these apps? Well, there's a program called the Volume Purchase Program, or VPP. And this is now a part of Apple Business Manager as well, too. This lets you purchase apps in bulk and then distribute them to your devices. Your users don't need to be signed in with an Apple ID because you can deploy them directly to the device. So you've got the option to just push down the app silently to a device, no interaction required by the user. And you can make those apps managed. That really gives you app-level control. It allows you to pre-configure them and apply appropriate settings. And it lets you control the flow of data using something known as Managed Open In. Then on security, just a quick overview before we dive into the CIS checklist here is, of course, you can encrypt these devices as long as you have a password on there. You can leverage the VPN connection so that all of your data is secure, and you can tell specific apps to use VPN as well. It's got a really great built-in client that supports all of the most popular protocols that are out there. And the biometrics for logging into a device, such as Touch ID or Face ID, where users don't have to remember their complex passwords. They can just log in very quickly. You can also leverage those for logging into specific apps. And then something to note too that Jamf has this app called Self-Service, which is really an app catalog that you as IT get to pre-populate with all of the approved resources that your employees need. So they're just a single tap or a click away from getting the appropriate apps and resources that they need to be productive. They don't have to bug you at all. They don't have to submit a ticket. So that's an overview of mobile device management, right? From deployments through inventory, configuring, management, apps, and security. And of course, to go deeper on security, we're going to take a look now at the CIS checklist. So who is the CIS and why are we talking about them here today? Well, the Center for Internet Security, or CIS, is a nonprofit organization, and they are focused on enhancing the cybersecurity readiness and response of public and private sector entities. Their benchmark for iOS is really a widely regarded document as a comprehensive checklist for organizations to follow to secure iPad and iPhone. And just a quote from their website here really explains what they're here for. The CIS benchmarks help you safeguard systems, software, and networks against today's evolving cyber threats. Developed by an international community of cybersecurity experts, the CIS benchmarks are configuration guidelines for over 100 technologies and platforms. So, why do we think this benchmark is so great? Well, again, they're an independent organization, and we think they're really great for regulated industries, like finance and government and healthcare, who really need that security baseline. Plus, they're extremely responsive to Apple's updates. They've got a version out for iOS 11, and they continue to update theirs as new versions come out. They're very, very comprehensive. They're free, which is a nice thing, and it covers both of their platforms. Now, to help sort of decode this guide, we set out to build something of our own as well, too. We built a free white paper, which is really meant to be a companion guide to this benchmark. We think that, this is a great thing for organizations, and so we help just outline what they recommend, and we highlight what to set inside of Jamf Pro. I highly recommend you check this out. I've provided a short link here for you, so you can quickly get to the download link, jamf.it/CIS for iOS. And that will let you download this companion guide. Make sure you do get both documents. You're going to have to navigate through the CIS site to get to the official document. But this just, again, is meant to be a companion guide for you. So how is the benchmark organized? Well, the benchmark outlines two different scenarios for security. One for institutionally owned devices, and one for personally owned devices. For each of these scenarios, they offer two different levels of security, level 1 and level 2. Here's how they describe it. So level 1 is these standards should be practical and prudent. They should provide a clear security benefit, and they should not inhibit the utility of the technology beyond acceptable means. So it's a great baseline for almost every organization out there. Now, level 2 is obviously for more security. They say this should be used for environments or use cases where security is paramount. They will act as a defense and provide in-depth security measures. It may, however, negatively impact or negatively inhibit the utility or performance of the technology. Great example there would be, well, if I need to block the camera for security reasons, it's obviously going to negatively inhibit the utility of that device. So let's take a look at some examples and what they outline here. Now, I wasn't able to obviously post the entire list on a single slide because it goes through a lot of different ones, but I wanted to just highlight a few things here so you get a sense of what they are recommending. Obviously, check out the white paper and check out the one that they offer as well too, and do the comparison guide or the companion guide. They obviously, we say the device should be managed via mobile device management, and it should be supervised, that higher level of management there. You want to make sure that there is a passcode set. They recommend at least 6 characters or more. That also turns on the encryption. You want to then configure these sensitive things like email and VPN for a user. You want to do so using a configuration profile. You don't want to just say, hey, user, here's the VPN settings to connect back to the corporate VPN. You want to do it for them using configuration profiles. They also recommend setting a lock screen message. So it says, if lost, return to. They want to make sure that the MDM profile cannot be removed, and that's extremely easy to do. You just have to enroll the device using Apple Business Manager and select a button there. And they also recommend disabling certain things like disabling iCloud backup and documents and data in their keychain. You don't want a user to be able to erase the device or to add their own VPN configurations or to install their own profiles. They even say disable Siri when the device is locked. And then some level 2 examples here is to disable like screenshots and screen recording, to not allow users to accept untrusted certs, and to not allow pairing to non-configurator hosts. All of these settings can be set inside of Jamf Pro. Then for personally owned devices, there's only so many things you can do on a personally owned device. But again, they also want to say, they say to have a password on there and configure things like email and VPN for the users. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you could disable certain things like handoff. Speaking of personally owned devices, we have a really cool solution inside of Jamf Pro for iOS personally owned devices. Here is what a BYOD profile looks like, where it's a limited profile because it's a personally owned device. So I could set a passcode or configure the Wi-Fi for them or configure their VPN and mail and deliver apps to them as well too. In fact, when a user goes to enroll a personally owned device, they get a really nice dialog box here, a really clear explanation of what IT can do to this device and what IT cannot do to this device. So we think we've got a pretty great balance for providing some security for personally owned devices while providing transparency to the user for what's actually happening. So that's the CIS checklist. Of course, there are so many other security protocols out there that you might have to deal with. But the great thing is Jamf is a flexible framework. So whether it's CIS or something else like PCI or SOC 2 or HIPAA, you can use Jamf as a framework to apply the appropriate security settings for the devices that you own. So let's recap here before wrapping up. We talked about Jamf Pro today and really how it can help with those zero-touch deployments using Apple Business Manager, or what used to be called Device Enrollment Program. You can configure them using configuration profiles to get the appropriate settings on there. You can deploy apps leveraging Apple Business Manager and what used to be called the Volume Purchase Program. You can gather extensive inventory data and take action on those devices. And you can apply security controls, whether that is the CIS benchmark or whether it's a hybrid of other programs out there as well too. Plus, you've got the self-service app catalog that is a great resource for your end users. From a technical point of view, the Jamf server can be hosted in the cloud or run on-premise. We recommend the cloud. It's easy, automatic updates. We use AWS as our infrastructure. If you run it on-prem, it's just a Linux or Windows server, and it's MySQL database talking to Tomcat. And of course, we go beyond our product to help you be successful. We've got amazing professional services that can either come out on location or can provide remote support for you to really do custom services. We've got dedicated training, both online and in the classroom, and we've got levels of certification to become an expert in our product. And we've got great world-class support. These folks are located across the globe, so wherever you're calling in from. And we do offer 24/7 for our premium support packages. And they are Apple experts. Plus, we have an amazing community out there. If you haven't seen Jamf Nation yet, check it out. It's our free and open forum, over 50,000 members strong, where Apple IT-focused individuals can really learn from each other and gain best practices. We talked about all the different things that we integrate here with from Apple. So the Apple Push Notification Service, Apple School Manager if you're a school, Apple Business Manager if you're a business, and the two programs that have rolled up into those two programs now, what used to be called DEP and VPP. And some great third-party integrations, such as directory services, single sign-on, your Microsoft tools even, like System Center and Intune, your Cisco networks, apps like ServiceNow, and we have our own API too. So some next steps for you. Reach out to us. Contact us to get started. Ping us. We'd love to talk to you about what this looks like for your environment specifically. And if you want to watch some other webinars, check out our website and navigate to our resources tab. They're all there. So with that, I want to thank everyone and have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks.